Hello and welcome to the video solutions of the quant sectional test. This is not a test that I'm attempting live, it is a test that I have made. Hopefully this will be more representative of the difficulty level that you will face in CAT compared to what the last test was. Although it was more difficult than what it should have been, but it was still fun. Hopefully you got some insights from that. About this test, let me start. The rules of attempting the test are same. Let's get to the first question, see how to solve this. 4 black cows and 3 brown cows give as much milk in 5 days as 3 black cows and 5 brown cows give in 4 days. If a black cow gives 10 liters of milk per day, what is the amount of milk in liters that a brown cow gives per day? Effectively, you have two kinds of workers, black cows and brown cows, and you can find out their relative efficiency. You can find out the ratio of their efficiency, and if efficiency of one is 10, what is the efficiency of the other? That is the basic framework of the question. Now, whenever you get two different kinds of workers in any question, whenever you get two different kinds of workers, man and child, woman and man, whatever, always try to identify which attribute out of work, efficiency or time is constant. Can you see the way this question has been made up? 4 black cows and 3 brown cows give as much milk in 5 days as 3 black cows and 5 brown cows. So efficiency of the different kinds of workers is different. Time period for which they are working, 5 days here, 4 days here, that is different. But the total amount of work done by them, the total amount of milk given by them is constant. So if total amount of milk given by them is constant, their efficiency into their time should also be equal. So if I take black cows as A and brown cows as B, 5 days into 4A plus 3B is equal to 4 days work of 3A plus 5B. This should enable you to reach a ratio for A and B, and then once you have value of A is given to you, so we get 28, 12A, so 8A, 15B and 20B, so 5B. So A by B is equal to 5 by 8. A here was efficiency of a black cow, which is given to me as 10 liters per day. So B will be 16. Answer to this question will be 16. This is not all the processing that you should be doing while attempting in the exam, as in this is not me attempting this question in the exam, this is me explaining the question and all the trigger points, all the thoughts that come to my head at the time of solving this. Different kinds of workers, which of the three is constant. Once I can identify that, I can process it further. Okay. Anit and Anand got a circular chocolate cake from the shop. They cut the cake into 7 unequal pieces. Okay, one of them gets only one piece and the other two get equal number of pieces. So they get 1, 3, 3 pieces. What is the number of ways in which they could have shared the cake pieces? Okay, if you, there is a very inviting wrong answer among the options. Hopefully you did not go there. Let's see. First thing you have to identify is who is that friend who is getting just one chocolate cake. So you select that friend in 3C1 ways. That is done. Now which piece is he getting? See, all the pieces are also unequal. So you select the piece that he is getting in 7C1 ways. And now you are left with 6 pieces to be distributed among two friends. Whichever two friends are there, friend 1 and friend 2. 6 pieces to be distributed among friend 1 and friend 2. So say you select 3 pieces. You select 3 pieces to be given to friend 2. Can you see at the same time 6 pieces to be given to friend 1? At the same time you have selected the 3 pieces that have to be given to friend 2. You don't have to make a selection for friend 2 again, or you don't have, after doing 6C3, whenever you do NCR, it is for a specific purpose. Why are you doing 6C3? We are doing this 6C3 to give it to one friend. As soon as you have given it to one friend, The selection for the second friend is also done, and therefore you don't need to multiply this by 2 again. To which friend should I give it to? This should be the entirety of the answer, which would be 3 into 7 into 20, which is equal to 420. And therefore option A is the right answer, not option D. I'm guessing most people will falter here. They will go on to do an extra 2C1 here, which friend is getting these three pieces, which is not the case. Because whenever you're doing NCR, whenever you're selecting something, it is for a purpose. What is the purpose for which you're doing N6C3 here? You're doing it for the purpose of giving it to one of these two friends. Which friend are you giving it to? That is ascertained beforehand itself. So as soon as you give it to one, the other person is already directly known. You don't need to make a selection out of the friends for the same. In other words, see, if the six pieces were A, B, C, and the other three pieces were D, E, F, and the two friends were friend 1 and friend 2. Friend 1 and friend 2. So as soon as you divide it to A, B, C and D, E, F, as soon as you divide it into A, B, C and D, E, F, this case is done. Is this case also not getting counted in 6C3? A, B, C, D, E, F. You're selecting three pieces out of six. This case is also counted. This case is also counted. You don't need to select a friend anymore. Otherwise, it will inflate your total count. Hopefully that is clear. Moving on to the next question. Find the sum of the digits of x square plus 2x into 10 raised to the power 8 plus 10 raised to the power 16 if x is equal to 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Okay, there is this beautiful insight about numbers that are of this nature. If you can see, 11 square is equal to 121. 111 square is equal to 12321. 1111 square is equal to 1 2 3 4 3 2 1, so on and so forth. Hopefully you can see the pattern that I'm talking of. You have two ones, so the middle term is 2. It increases up till 2, then it falls down. When there are three ones, it increases up till 3 and then falls down. When there are four ones, it increases up to 4 and it falls down. Some of you might be familiar with this. This is Pascal's triangle sort of representation. Those of you are not, maybe now you know. So when he's saying x square, let us just count how many ones we have. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. So you have 8 ones, so it will be 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 7 6 5 4 3 2 1. These would be 15 digits. These would be 15 digits. Okay. Now the second term that you have, 10 raised to the power 8. So last 8 numbers will be 0 only. So put the zeros there. And then you have 2x. 2x means 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, and 2, 2. 8 twos followed by 8 zeros. And the final thing is 10 raised to the power 16. So can you see how many digits are these? 1, 2. So I have 16 digits here. The second line, this is 15 digits. This is 16 digits. So when I have 10 raised to the power 16, this would be a 17 digit number. I will have 1, 0, 0, 0, 0. All of these digits would be 0 only. Let us add up these terms. What will we get? We get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And now you're looking for sum of these numbers. Sum of first 8 consecutive natural numbers is 36. Sum of first 8 consecutive natural numbers is 36. And you have an additional 9. So 36 plus 9 plus 36 should be equal to 81. Another way you could have potentially reached this was, if you look at this expression, it is slightly familiar. Hopefully you can see it is x square 2 into x into 10 raised to the power 8 and 10 raised to the power 8 whole square. This is the sort of number that we are dealing with. So you could have happily gone and taken this number as x plus 10 raised to the power 8 whole square, which would have led you to see this is uh, 8 ones. So when you're adding 10 raised power 8, so it will turn into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This has turned into a 9-digit number. Now with the help of this, you can reach this result directly and then add up the numbers. In either case, your answer will continue to remain 81 for this question. So I have 16 here, 420 here, 81 here. Okay, let's look at this question now. Three pipes A, B, C can fill a tank in 40, 60 and 100 minutes respectively. As soon as you get times, the first thought has to be LCM. 40, 60 LCM is 120, 120 and 100. LCM is 600. So efficiencies of A would be 15, B would be 10 and C would be 6. Okay, these efficiencies are. If tap A is opened first, tap B after 10 minutes, which means first 10 minutes only A was working and it works at the rate of 15. So in the first 10 minutes it would have filled up 150 liters, and tap C after another 5 minutes. Now for the next 5 minutes, see, A and B both are working. A works with a rate of 15, B works with a rate of 10. Together they work with a rate of 25 for 5 minutes. So it will take up, so they will end up filling 125. So far the tank has been filled up 275. Finally the question is, in how many more minutes will the tank be filled? See, we had taken our LCM as 600, which led us to these respective efficiencies. If the tank already has 275, the space that is left in tank is 325, and this will now be filled up. By all the three pipes, 15 plus 10 plus 6 at the rate of 31. So 310, hopefully you can see very quickly, 310 plus 15 by 31. This is not something I write in exam, but I'm just showing how my brain thinks here. This gives me 10 and then I get 15 by 31. Therefore, among the four, option D will be the final answer. Okay. Next question. A circle of radius r is inscribed in a quadrant of a circle of radius x centimeter. If x is less than 40, how many integral values of r are possible? Okay, let us first draw a quadrant of a circle. Will look something like this. Now there will be a circle inside of it, touching it. So for this circle, if this is the radius, can you see? This is the radius, and the figure that gets created here, let me use a different colored pen. The figure that gets created by these four vertices is a square with a side of r. So this is root 2r. So r plus root 2r, according to the question, this is the entire radius of the quadrant now. This is less than 40. So r should be less than 40 by 1 plus root 2. Now they are asking me how many integral values of r are possible. Although they say integral, the implied condition is always positive integral, because this is a radius of a circle, it cannot be negative. So 1 plus root 2, I can write it as 40 divided by 2.414, 2.414, and then using the calculator, this is I'm dividing it by 2.4 only. I'm dividing it by 2.4. I can't divide by 2.4 only, because 2.4 would give me 1.66 and we don't know if it is going. So 400 divided by 2.414, 4000 40 was already there. 3 places I've moved, so 2 now. Okay. So 1, 2, 4, 1, 4. Then I get 86 here. 15860. Can I go 7? 20 into 7 is 140. 4 into 7 is 280. So that will reach 1680. So no. 16 point something I will reach. R is less than 16 point something. Ideally in the exam I wouldn't even bother with this calculation. I would use a calculator. Happily trust my calculator to get me the answer. R is less than 16 point something something. If R is less than 16 point something something, how many integral values of R are possible? The answer will be 16 only. Okay. Fairly straightforward question, just that you have to be patient in solving. Next question. Amy, Sheldon's girlfriend, has to visit towns B and C in any order. The roads connecting these towns with her home are shown on the diagram. How many different routes can she take starting from A and returning to A, going through both B and C, but not more than once through each, and not traveling any road twice in the same trip? Okay, so she has to start from A, then she has to end at A. She will either go A, B, C, A or A, C, B, A. These are the only two routes possible to her. Now, in how many ways can she go from A to B? A to B, there is just one route possible because she is not going through any town twice. So, A to B is just one route possible. B to C, there are two routes possible. C to A, there are two routes possible. So 1 into 2 into 2, there are 4 ways this path can be traversed. Now A to C is same as C to A, 2 paths. B to C same as C to B, so 2 paths. B to A same as A to B, so 1 path. So 2 into 2 into 1, there will be 4 more paths. Altogether, I will have 8 paths for Amy to travel from A to end up at A, to travel both these cities once and not taking any road more than once. Total paths would be 8. Just count the number of paths that you have between these nodal points, and that should lead you to your answer. Next question. Persons X, Y, and Z wish to go from place A to place D, which are separated by a distance of 70 kilometers. All the 3 persons start off together from A. This was a set question, as in there were 3 questions belonging to the same information points. All the 3 persons start off together from A with X and Y going by Luna at a speed of 20 km per hour. X drops Y somewhere along the way and returns to pick up Z, who has already started walking towards B at the rate of 5 km per hour. Y, after being dropped by X, starts walking towards B at the speed of 5 km per hour. In this manner, all 3 of them reach B at the same time. Okay. Now, final question is, how much distance is covered by Z on foot? Look at this storyline. You have 2 places, A, B. Think of Y now. Think of Y. How has he traveled? First, he traveled by Luna. This is Y's story. And then some distance walking. Think of Z's story. He has first walked some distance and then the rest of the distance on Luna. The first inference that I want you to make is, if Y and Z, according to the question, all 3 of them reach B at the same time. If Y and Z have managed to reach point B at the same time, can I infer that the length of the journey that they spent walking and they spent on Luna has to be identical? Because this portion speed of 20, this portion speed of 20, this portion speed of 5, this portion speed of 5, if both these journeys are taking equal amount of time, can I say the split between 20 km per hour and 5 km per hour has to be equal? And as soon as you can reach that, just represent that on your journey. If I take this as X and this as X, this middle portion from the point where Z was picked up and the point where Y was dropped, between these 2 points, this distance will be 70 minus 2x, because the total path was 70 kilometers only. Now look at story of X. What has he done? He first goes to this point, then comes back to this point, and then goes to the, this is the storyline for X. For his entire journey is Luna only. His entire journey is Luna only. And he's traveling this way. Now see, the entire journey for X was on Luna at the speed of 20 kilometers per hour. And he manages to reach B at the same time as Y, as Z. Of course, Z he does, because Z was on his Luna when he reached B. Whatever expression equation you can make out of it. See, the distance traveled by X in the first go is 70 minus X. X plus 70 minus 2X. When he's returning, he traveled 70 minus 2X. And then from the point he picked up Z, the distance traveled by him is 70 minus X, because 70 minus 2X plus X. So the total distance traveled by him by X is 210 minus 2X. And he traveled this distance at a speed of 20. Now pick up either Y or W, doesn't make a difference. Y traveled 70 minus X at the rate of 20, the portion for which Y was on Luna, and final X at the rate of 5. And the time taken in this instant is same as time taken in this case. Now solve for X, everything else will become clear. First thing I'll do is I'll cancel the denominators by 5. So I get 4 here, I get 4 here. So I have 70 minus X plus 4X is equal to 210 minus 2X, or 3X, 5X, 3X minus, sorry, this is not 210 minus, this is 4X, this is 4X. Okay. So 70 minus X, where is my maths, plus 4X. Okay, so this is minus 4X. Okay, so 3X plus 4X, so 7X is equal to 140. So X should be equal to 20. So this portion is 20, this portion is 20, and this portion is 30 in between. Now we can answer all the 3 questions in the set. How much distance is covered by Z on foot? Z covered 20 kilometers on foot, that was X. Next question is, how long does it take to go from A to B? So total time taken, 210 minus 4X, 210 minus 80 divided by 20. So we get 130 by 20, or 6.5. So answer to the second question, 6.5. Last question in the set. How much time is Y dropped? After how much time is Y dropped on the way by X? Okay. So total time taken by Y is 6.5 hours. Last 20 kilometers it traveled at the rate of 5. So it took 4 hours for the walking portion. For Y, the walking portion took 4 hours. So after how much time was it dropped? It will be 2.5 hours. 6.5 minus 4. Or you can also go, the total distance here is 50, traveled at the rate of 20. So you get 2.5 hours. After 2.5 hours, Y was dropped. In either case, answer will be 2.5 only. That is the entirety of this set. The reason why I included this set was, this is a setup that is very simple, yet not a lot of people understand it. So I wanted to devote some time to it, and therefore this entire diagrammatic representation and explanation. Next question. Pinku goes out for a walk between 5 p.m. and 6 p.m. When he returns back, he finds that the hands of the clock have exchanged their positions. If Pinku comes back between 8 p.m. and 9 p.m., for how long did he walk? Okay, look at this. 12, 3, 6, 9, 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 8, 10, 11. Okay. Pinku goes out for a walk between 5 p.m. and 6 p.m. So our hand will point somewhere here, and he came back between 8 p.m. and 9 p.m. By then, if the hour hand and the minute hand have exchanged positions between 8 p.m. and 9, so minute hand right now should be pointing somewhere between 8 and 9 right now, so that hour hand goes here, minute hand goes wherever. Now see what has happened in the period that Pinku was out. The hour hand has traveled this distance. Our hand has traveled this distance theta, and the minute hand would have traveled whatever distance. Let me not represent it that way. Minute hand has managed to reach somewhere between 5 and 6 now. After whatever duration has passed, the minute hand has traveled this theta, and the remainder out of 360 minus theta, how am I writing it? 360 minus theta has been traveled by the minute hand. But see, this is not the precise distance traveled by the minute hand, because it would complete one round, 360. It would complete another round. See, from 5 to 6, in this, wherever it was, this point, say initially the hour hand was pointing here. When it got here, the minute hand has completed one round. The minute hand has completed one round. When the hour hand is pointing here, until then, the minute hand has traveled 360 minus theta. So, can you see the minute hand and the hour hand together in the duration that Pinku was out have traveled 1080 degrees? I don't know if it is clear from this diagram, so I'll take one more stab at representing it appropriately. If for understanding sake, you can simply imagine it being, they have just gone for 1 hour, not 3 as per the question, just 1 hour, then it will potentially be easier to represent. Okay, 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 8, 10, 11. So if they had gone between 5 and 6, and he returned between 6 and 7, just for the sake of understanding. So our hand was previously here, minute hand was previously somewhere here. What has happened in the interim when you are returning between 6 and 7 is, our hand is going this far, and the minute hand is traveling this distance, which is 360 minus theta. Can you see the hour hand and the minute hand, when they're exchanging within the hour, they're together traveling 360 degrees. Now if you repeat the same storyline, but now the duration is not there returning within the hour, it is within 3 hours. It is within 3 hours. Let me just erase these portions and try and represent it again. Initially the hour hand is here, the minute hand is here. Later on, the hour hand goes up till this point, the minute hand takes one round, takes another round, and on the third time it is here. If it has moved theta, the minute hand has moved 360, 360 and 360 minus theta. Together they have traveled 1080 degrees. I hope it is clear now. I have tried to go to as much detail as I potentially can. Now they have traveled 1080 degrees, but at what rate? See, this is no longer a question of relative speed. This is a question of time and work now. Me and my friend have done 1080 units of work, wherein I work at the rate of 6 degree per minute, and my friend works at the rate of half degree per minute. We are not looking at the relative distance traveled between the two hands of the clock. We are looking at cumulatively they have traveled 1080 degrees. So when minute hand is operating at the rate of 6 degree per minute, our hand is operating at the rate of 6.5 degree per minute. So how much time should it take? 1080 divided by 6.5. 6.5 can also be written as 1080 by 13 by 2. This 2 goes to the top and you end up with 2160 by 13. The answer to the question will be option C. Again, a straightforward question for those who have been familiar with this question type or have done something about this. For those who have not, maybe this will give you some more insight about it. Next question. In the given figure, in the figure given below, AG and BG are diameters of two circles with radii 1 and 3 centimeter respectively. So AG is 2 and GB is 6, or this AB is 8. Okay. G is the only point of contact of the two circles. Fine. BC is the tangent of length 6 centimeter to the bigger circle. So BC is 6 told to us, and BF is perpendicular to line AC. BF is perpendicular to line AC. Prior to going anywhere, can you see if this is tangent? This will be 90. This is 8. This is 6. Straight away you can see this is 10. 6, 8, 10. Pythagorean triplets have to be on your fingertips. Also, if this is 6, this is 8, this is 10. Hopefully you can also quickly figure out the length of BF, because half into 8 into 6 should be equal to half into 10 into BF. So 6 into 8 is 48 by 10. This length will be 4.8. BF will be 4.8. Okay. Find the length of CF. Length of CF. This is 6. This is 4.8. This would necessarily be 3.6. The answer to the question is option C, option 3. I'm not saying if you are not familiar with Pythagorean triplets, you cannot reach an answer here, but it will take you much more time than other people who would be doing it quickly by the Pythagorean triplet route. Okay. Next question. Two circles intersect each other such that the tangents drawn from the point of intersection to both the circles are mutually perpendicular. What is the length of the common tangent if the radii of the circles are 10 units and 5 units respectively? Okay, so I have to make one large circle and one not so large circle. I have my centers here. We know two circles intersect each other, don't really care. I have to find out the length of the common tangent. So common tangent will go somewhere like this. Just bear with my drawing skills. That is how awesome I am. I know this is 5. These two intersect, so we don't know what the length is, but I'm just saying whatever the line joining their centers is, also draw a line from the point where the tangent is getting made in the smaller circle to the larger circle. Can you see if these two are parallel? If these two are parallel, these two would also be parallel now. This will also be 5. This will also be 5. Now, if this is 5 and this is 5, oh, I don't think I have completely recorded the information. I haven't even recorded the data about their tangents and everything. I will have to draw again. Sorry. Let me draw with the black color this time. Sorry. If only there was a tool by which I could make proper circles, not these pathetic shapes that I make right now. But okay. Intersect each other. Tangents drawn from point of intersection to both circles are mutually perpendicular. Okay, so tangents drawn from here, if I go here, and from here if I go here. Okay, if this is 5, this is 10, this is 5, this is 10. Okay, this will be 5 root 5. Okay, don't know, don't care. Another thing, the common tangent. So something like this. Common tangent will go something like this. Okay, if I draw a line here, Dunzo, this is 5. This length here, can you see? Where do I make it? This is center 1, this is center 2, this is the point of intersection with the tangent, and also this line, same thing. I have drawn this line parallel, naming this point is A, this point is B, where the tangent is meeting, this point is D. If AD is parallel to C1 C2, then see what would happen. This line was 5, this line will also be 5. This line was 5, this line will also be 5. So this will also be 5. Now this is 5 root 5. So AD, if I can draw a separate line representing it, yes, AD will also be 5 root 5 because a parallelogram is getting created. If this is 5, this is 5 root 5, and pay attention, this is tangential here. You have 5 here, 10 here, 5 root 5 here. You have 5 here, 5 root 5 here. Of course, this length would have to be 10. Similar triangles getting created. And therefore, what is the length of the common tangent? From this point to this point, B to A, length of the common tangent will be 10 units only. I'm sorry my diagrammatic skills are not that great, but hopefully you were able to get the gist of why drawing this parallel line helps in solving it further. Okay, next question. All 3-digit numbers in which 10th digit is a perfect square are formed by using the digits 1 to 9. The sum of all such numbers is. Okay, pay attention to the fact they have resolved one of the greatest queries that any CAT aspirant has. Is 0 a perfect square or not? They have simply stated you have to use digits only 1 to 9, so 0 as a number is not even possible in the numbers that you create. So that is wonderful. Otherwise, my personal opinion on the issue is, as long as two integers multiply to give the same two integers multiply to give me the same result, then you should only then it is a perfect square, and by that extension 0 is a perfect square. But there are different mathematical schools of thought, don't care about that right now. For the purposes of this question, if the 10th digit is a perfect square, 10th digit can be 1, 10th digit can be 4, and 10th digit can be 9. If 10th digit is 1, 4 or 9, there are two other things. Now what digits can come here? Anything from 1 to 9. There are 9 cases. And what digits can come here? Anything from 1 to 9. There are 9 cases. What I'll do is I'll try to make a storyline for 1, and then I will replicate the storyline for everything else. You get 81 numbers here. 81 numbers here. Now, how often would 1 come at the unit place? As often as 2, as often as 3, as often as 4, as often as 5, as often as any other digit. Given there are 81 numbers, can I say 1 would have come in the units place 9 times, 2 would have come in the units place 9 times, 3 would have come in the units place 9 times, so on and so forth, up until 9 would have come in the units place 9 times? Or altogether, can I say summation, contribution to the sum of all the numbers that are coming in the units place, contribution of all the numbers that are coming in the units place would be 45 into 9. 45 into 9. Done. Now the same storyline, this 45 into 9 that you're getting here, can you see that 45 into 9 is the same storyline you would get here, just that this place is hundreds place. So contribution to the sum from the numbers that come at the leading place would be 45 into 9 into 100. From the units place, it would be 45 into 9. Now from the tens place, you have 81 numbers. In all those 81 numbers, you have 1 here. So contribution to the sum would be 81 into 1 into the placeholder's value, which is 10, and this would be sum of all the numbers with 1 at the tens place. Now when you're dealing with 4 at the tens place, what would happen? Do the first two storylines change at all? They remain precisely the same. They have not changed. The only thing that will change is this last thing. So what I'll do is, if it is not changing for 4, it will also not change for 9. So can I straight away say, just do this into 3 and do this into 3. So their contribution to the total sum has been ascertained straight away. For the middle portion, you will get 81 into 4 into 10, or 81 into 9 into 10, or these three expressions together will be 81 into 14 into 10. So the three things that I have to multiply are 45 into 9 into 3 into 100, 45 into 9 into 3, and 81 into 14 into 10. And you can multiply this and reach your answer as 1. Of course, that mathematical way is available. Another potential thing that you could have done, if you watched the base system video wherein we learned the divisibility rule of 27, can you see each of these terms, this is divisible by 27, this is divisible by 27, this is divisible by 27. First thing, hopefully you can find out that the summation will not end in 0. Summation will not end in 0. So this is gone. This number cannot be the answer. These three are left. Now, because this is divisible by 81, 9 into 9. This is divisible by 81, 9 into 9. This is 81 itself. So all of these terms are divisible by 27. Now I'm simply applying the divisibility rule of 27 to see which numbers are divisible by 27. Here I get 55 plus 170 adds up to 225, which is not a multiple of 27. So this cannot be the answer. 85 plus 149 is 234, which is not a multiple of 27. So this will not be the answer. 134 plus 55 is 189, which is 27 into 7. So this will be the answer. You could also have reached your answer by checking whether it is a multiple of 27 or not. Just it would save you 3-4 extra seconds, nothing more, just to know that much. Okay, moving on. How many arrangements of the letters of the word catastrophe are there in which both A's appear before both T's? Okay, there are two A's, there are two T's. I'm just checking that if there are any more repeated letters. No, there are no more repeated letters. So now this should be simple. You have 11 blanks in which all the letters have to be filled up. Select 4 blanks out of those 11. Now in these 4 blanks, in the first 2 blanks, put A. In the next 2 blanks, put T. So you have made sure your condition is being met. Both the A's appear before both the T's. Then you have 7 distinct letters left, 7 distinct spaces left. They can be rearranged in 7 factorial ways. So you have 11 factorial by 4 factorial, 7 factorial into 7 factorial. Get rid of it. You are left with 11 factorial divided by 4 factorial, or answer option A. Very, very straightforward question. Or you could have also done it, maybe the thought could also have been, I can rearrange them in 11 factorial ways. Wherever A and T are coming, I have to ensure that A's are to the left only, T's are to the right only. So rearrange them. You can rearrange them in 4 factorial ways. Now by 2 you don't need to do, because the ones that require by 2, they would be present here also, they will cancel each other out. So you can directly reach 11 factorial by 4 factorial. Would depend on how much conceptual clarity you have. If your concept is clear, this would be this is nice. If it is not, you can still figure this out the simpler way forward. Next question. All the students of a class consisting n students are made to play 4 games in such a way that each student plays exactly 2 games. Okay, and each pair of games has exactly 1 student in common. Find it. Okay, look at this. Each student plays exactly 2 games and each pair of games has exactly one student. Can you see for any pair of games there is just one student and that would be the total count of students? Because every student is playing exactly 2 games and for each pair of games there is just one student. We were told that there are 4 games. So how many pairs of games can I make? 4C2. 6 pairs are available. And for each pair you will have one student. So what is the number of students? Answer will be 6 only. Very, very straightforward question. Next question. P is a set of factors of 180 such that no element of the set is a multiple of any other element. What is the maximum number of elements that P can have? Okay, I have included this question because at most places they simply tell you these many elements will be there. Look at an example. What I want you to look at is how you can make your set the not necessarily the proper way, but a logical way or a insightful way to do this. List down all the factors of whatever number you're dealing with. So I have 1 into 180, 2 into 90, 3 into 60. Of course, this way of listing down factors is nice because the smallest and largest factors get recorded straight away. 5 into 36, 6 into 30, 8 no, 9 into 20, 10 into 18, and 12 into 15. Yes, all the factors have been listed. Now, whatever set you are making, so that no element of the set is a multiple of any other element. What is the maximum number of elements that set we can have? Whatever set you are making, try to make a set either from this side or from this side and include as many numbers as you possibly can. So if I end up taking 15, can I take 18 now? Yes. Can I take 20 now? Yes. Can I take 30 now? No, because 15 is there, 30 cannot come. But can I take 36 now? Yes. Can I take 45 now? No, 15 is included, 45 cannot come. Can I take 60 now? No. Can I take 90 now? No. Can I take 180 now? No. Okay. So now this listing we have done. But could you see that for the higher powers, the higher numbers, 15 was proving to be our bone of contention. So remove 15. Remove 15. And now see, can I take 30 now? Yes. Can I take 45 now? Yes. Can I take 90 now? No, 45 and 30 both are objecting to this. Can I take 60 now? 20 and 30 both are objecting to 60. 180 is of course not possible to be taken. And this will give you the largest set size. This will give you the largest set size, which for which every element of the set is not a multiple of any other element of the set. Answer will be 5. You could, I have done this for the right column. Let me do it for the left column. So let's start with, can I take 12? Yes. Can I take 10? Yes. Can I take 9? Yes. Can I take let's look at 5? No. 10 has been taken. Can I take 4? No. 12 has been taken. Can I take 3? No. 2? No. 1? No. None of these are possible. Okay, let me then do 12, 10, 9. These 3 we had already taken. Can I take 15 now? Yes. Can I take 45? No. 60? No. Anything, any other number that I can potentially fit? 4? No. Because of 4, am I getting troublesome? 36? No. Any other number that I can fit in? I'm saying I'm chucking this 12 in favor of 4 so that I can also include 6. I can have another case of 4, 10, 9, 15, 6. In this column, in the left column, it is usually more difficult to identify. In fact, even while using this column, I had to go and borrow a number from the other column. It is always beneficial if you try to make listing from this side and then see which number is giving you most trouble in terms of other things are becoming multiples of that. It would be easier for you to form the set that you are finally dealing with. Answer option B, 5. Next question. A certain city has a circular wall around it. if this wall has 4 gates pointing north, south, east and west, okay, oh, not if this, so I have a circle, there is a north gate, there is a east gate, there is a south gate, there is a west gate, okay, it should be west, okay. This wall has 4 gates pointing northeast. A south stands outside the city 3 kilometers north of the north gate. You have, sorry, 3 kilometers away there is a house, okay, and it can be seen from a point 9 kilometers west of the south gate. 9 kilometers west of the south gate. So 9 kilometers west of the south gate. That point will be somewhere here. And it says can be just seen. Just seen means this thing will be tangential. The line of sight will be tangential from this point. This is 9 kilometers. Okay. What is the diameter of the wall that surrounds the city? Diameter of the wall that surrounds the city. Okay. Now there is a technical way of doing this. There is a smart way of doing this. The technical way of doing this would be, let the diameter be d here. So 3 into 3 plus d is equal to, if this is 9, see from this external point, this is diametrical, so this will also be 9 kilometers only. So let this be k. So 3 into 3 plus d should be equal to k square. The other thing you can potentially see is 3 plus d whole square plus 9 whole square is equal to 9 plus k whole square. Then you can go ahead and solve for values of k and d. The other thing you can potentially do, again, the insistence on knowing Pythagorean triplets. You see 9 here. You see 9 here. Finally, also pay attention. They are asking for diameter. Don't worry about radius. Something that a lot of people do. 3 plus something and 9, and then you are getting this. Do you know of a Pythagorean triplet involving 9? I'm pretty sure all of us know. 9, 12 and 15. Simply put the values of d. If this side is 12, d would be 9 and k would be 6. Just see if this is valid. 3 into 3 plus 9, 12 is equal to 6 square. Yes, all conditions are being met, which means this is indeed the triangle getting created, which means the answer is option B, 9 kilometers. The diameter is 9. I don't mind somebody solving this. It is just that in exam situation, when you're trying to reduce time, option checking is also a valid strategy that I'm not saying for every question get into checking options, but anytime you see something very complex cropping up and you have options available, see if you can use them in some way. Next thing, find x where x is equal to 11 by 3 plus 11 by 8 plus 11 by 15 plus 11 by 24, and it goes on till 11 by 99. I have to find out the sum of this. Okay. First thing you need to know is, of course, you're not expected to find out the LCM of all the denominators and then add, multiply, subtract, because that would be too cumbersome. You can also use some degree of approximation to reach your answer. If you're comfortable with division by the numbers given here, I would definitely suggest do that. If you want to solve it technically, you can also do it this way. See, whenever you get some series, say it had been going on for blah 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 blah, if it had been an infinite series, then also what logic should be used? Can you see, whenever you're given such a series, either the terms cancel each other out or there is just one or two things left at the end. Terms have to interact with each other such that I'm not left with so many things to worry about. First thing I can definitely do is take 11 common. Now I'm left with 3, 1 by 8, 1 by 15, 1 by 24, blah 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 blah, 1 by 99. Ideally, I would not write this down in an exam. I'm doing this to explain to you what all is happening in my 11 I have taken out, which tells me in the denominator I have 3, 8, 15, 24. I'm trying to identify, is there a pattern somewhere here? Yes, hopefully you can see that pattern. 1 into 3, 2 into 4, 3 into 5, 4 into 6, so on and so forth up until 9 into 11. Once you have gotten this, once you have identified this pattern, then it should become easy. You want your terms to break down as 1 minus 1 by 1 minus 1 by 3. They should break down as 1 by 1 minus 1 by 3. But the problem with this is, this expression right now will give you 2 by 3. But you need eventually 1 by 3. So there will be a half outside of it. The 11 is there. 11, don't worry about it. There will be a half outside of it. Post that, you have half again and left with 1 by 2 minus 1 by 4. Brilliant. Of course it works. Then you have half outside, then 1 by 3 minus 1 by 5. So on and so forth. It will keep on going up until the last term, which will be half of 1 by 9 minus 1 by 11. Hopefully you can also see, you can take this half outside now. So you'd be left with 11 by 2 into, now within these terms, see, you have a minus 1 by 3 here, you have a plus 1 by 3 here. You have a minus 1 by 4 here, there will be a minus 1 by 4 here. When you start cancelling things out, you will be left with the positive portion of the first two terms and the negative portion of the last two terms. And therefore, within the bracket, what you would have is 1 plus 1 by 2 minus 1 by 10 minus 1 by 11. Now, the processing becomes easier. You get 11 by 2 into 110 plus 55 minus 11 minus 10, whole thing divided by 110, or 11 by 2, 165 minus 21, so 144 by 110, cancel, you get 10, cancel, you get 72, or final answer 7.2, which will be option A. I'm taking a 1 second break. I'm taking a 1 second break just to catch my breath. The recording will be paused for now. We will resume in, or, oh, the issue has been resolved. I don't need to take a pause. I will continue solving. Okay. Next question. A ladder 130 feet long is leaning on a wall. The distance of the foot of the ladder from the foot of the wall is 120 feet. Okay. This is the ladder leaning against a wall. This we have been told as 120, and ladder is 130. Again, 30 and 20, hopefully you can see the height has to be 50 only. If the ladder is lifted upwards such that the height of the point where the ladder touches the wall above the ground increases by 70 feet. Previously it was 50. Now it will be 120. It is still 30 here. The base will now become 50. Base will now become 50. Then what is the decrease in the horizontal distance of the foot of the ladder from the foot of the wall? Previously it was 120, now it is 50. So the decrease is 70 only. Very straightforward question. Again, you wouldn't even need to make diagrams if you were familiar with Pythagorean triplets and they run in your head at all times. Okay, next question. The cruise liner Queen Alice is 380 meters long and travels at a speed of 32 kilometers per hour in still water. The frigate Lord Harry is 180 meters long and travels at the rate of 40 kilometers per hour in still water. The two ships pass each other in the Atlantic Ocean, traveling in opposite directions. Okay, in a region where there is a current of 8 meters per second. How long in seconds will it take them to pass each other? I don't know if you are aware of this, but this is useless information for you. This is useless information for you. There is an insight by this line. Uh, Within the same environment, the relative speeds of bodies are not impacted by the influence of the environment. Because see, if speed of boat 1 was s1 and speed of boat 2 was s2, regardless of who was traveling downward or upward, say if this was traveling with water, this was traveling against water, can you see the relative speed will continue to remain s1 plus s2 only? They are moving towards each other. You add them up, W and W, the impact of water is cancelled. This 8 is of no use to us in this question. So even if there was no water, whatever will be the answer, that is what we have to find. Of course, you have to take care of units in along the way. So there is 380-meter long cruise liner, there is 180-meter long cruise frigate. I don't know what this word means. Maybe I will learn after this. 380 plus 180, so the length that has to be traveled, or the distance that has to be traveled, is 560 meters. Now the speed is given as 32 and 40, or the relative speed, because they are moving towards each other, is 72 kilometers per hour. Also, I want you to train your brain in this way. Think in jumps of 18. It will be extremely useful while converting numbers. This is 5 meters per second. This is 10 meters per second. This is 15 meters per second. This is 20 meters per second. Nth multiple of 18 in kilometer per hour is nth multiple of 5 in meter per second. Helps you immensely, because as soon as you see 72, you know relative speed in meter per second is 20. Of course, you can always convert. You will reach the same answer. But where we are trying to save 2 seconds, 3 seconds, this would be extremely useful. 0, 0 cancel. You get 28 seconds. Answer to the question is 28. Do not bother about the speed of water. It is immaterial here for purposes of solving. Okay. Next. An odd integer between 600 and 800 is divisible by 7 and also by 9. What is the sum of the digits? If an integer is divisible by 7 and also by 9, can I say that integer will be divisible by 63? So we are looking at multiples of 63 within this range. Additionally, see that this question is theta. One multiple of 63, 630 is very quickly visible. The next multiple would be 63 more, or 693. Should I be looking for any other multiples? Not at all. I wanted an odd integer. I've got an odd integer. Question is theta. The answer has to be unique one only. So this will lead me to the answer. The answer is 6 plus 9 plus 3, which is 18. And that will be all for this question. Do not overthink questions that do not deserve that honor. Next question. A bag has 10 balls. Each of them is either red, blue, or green. In every trial, one ball is drawn and put back in the bag before the next trial. Okay, so in every attempt, you have 10 balls in the bag. The probability of not getting a blue ball in 2 consecutive trials is 81 by 100. So, not getting a blue into not getting a blue is equal to 81 by 100, or not getting a blue is equal to 9 by 10. There were 10 balls in the bag. If not getting a blue is 9 by 10, getting a blue is 1 by 10, or there is one blue ball. There is one blue ball. The probability of getting 2 green balls in 2 consecutive trials is 49 by 100. So green ball in 2 consecutive trials is 49 by 100. This is as good as probability of getting a green ball in one trial is 7 by 10. So there are 7 green balls. I know there is one blue ball. There are 7 green balls. Can I also conclude there are 2 red balls now? There are 2 red balls now. Next question is, what is the probability of getting balls of 3 different colors in 3 consecutive trials? So now the order of you getting the balls can be green, blue, red, or red, blue, green. 3 things. They can come in 3 factorial ways. Regardless of whatever is the case, you would have probability for green balls will be 7 by 10, Probability for blue balls will be 1 by 10 and probability for red balls will be 2 by 10. That is clear. So you get 84 by 1000. You can, sorry, 1000. So you can divide it by 4. You get 21 by 250. Answer to the question will be option B. Okay. Again, given these numbers are so nice, this is the sort of processing that should happen in your head. I'm trying to do it slowly and detailed stepwise. Okay, a basket contains only 3 kinds of fruits: guavas, mangoes, and pears. What is the minimum number of fruits that should be picked from the basket to ensure that at least 5 guavas or at least 7 mangoes or at least 8 pears are picked? Okay, this is what I call the Pandu Kismat concept. If you want to ensure that you have at least 5 guavas, your desire is to get 5, at least 5 guavas, and your kismat or your luck is extremely bad. What would happen? You would end up with 4 guavas. Or you want 7 mangoes, but your luck is bad, you would end up with 6 mangoes. Your luck is extremely bad, you want 8 pairs, you would end up with 7 pairs. Now you have 4 guavas, 6 mangoes, and 7 pears. You have 17 fruits with you already. You have 17 fruits with you already, yet your objective has not been met. Remember, you don't have to ensure all 3. You simply have to ensure one of the 3. You have 17 fruits with you, yet your objective is not met. Next, whichever fruit you pick up, whether it is a guava, whether it is a mango, or a pear, your objective will get met. So, what is the minimum number of fruits that should be picked from the basket to ensure the next fruit that you pick up will guarantee that you have met one of these objectives? Therefore, the answer to this question would be 18 fruits. This is also popularly known as the pigeonhole principle. And those familiar with the pigeonhole principle, not familiar, they usually get tripped up by the wording of the question. What is the minimum number of fruits? But 18 is the maximum. This is not the maximum. See, you have to read the sentence in entirety. What is the minimum number of fruits that should be picked up to ensure? So I could very well, in the first 5 fruits that I have picked up, it could be all 5 guavas and then my target is done. But I cannot say if I have picked up 5 fruits, I will definitely have I met the objective here. If I have picked up 6 fruits, or 6 fruits or 7 fruits or 8 fruits or 9 fruits or 10 fruits, until I have picked up 18 fruits, I cannot be confident that I have definitely met the objective, which is picking up at least 5 guavas or picking up at least 7 mangoes or picking up at least 8 pears. You have to ensure that one of these objectives have been met. So which is the minimum number, which is the minimum level at which you can say, yes, now I am sure the objective has definitely been met. That is the minimum here. The minimum is not by 18 is a very large number, it should be small. That is useless reasoning. Okay. Next question. A trader gives P% discount on the market price and makes P plus 25% profit. If he offers a discount of P plus 10%, then he makes P plus 10% profit. Find the percentage by which the market price exceeds the cost price. Okay. Again, a hint here in this question is they're asking you find the percentage by which the market price exceeds the cost price. So pay attention, you only have to calculate percentage. So you are at complete liberty to assume values, not for P, not for the exceeding, the value by which it is exceeding, but you are at complete liberty to assume values. So what I'm doing is I'm taking my CP to be 100 and MP to be 100 plus X. What this will do is the value of X is also the percentage by which the market price exceeds the cost price. So I am looking to solve for X. I'm looking to solve for X. Now the situations given to me are market price, I have 100 plus X gives P% discount. So 100 plus X into 100 minus P by 100 after discount. This is the selling price now. Minus 100. This is the selling price minus 100. Whole thing upon 100 is equal to P plus 25%. So P plus 25 by 100. Okay, I have got this. So the hundreds can go. This 100 comes to this side. I have 100 plus X into 100 minus P by 100 is equal to P plus 125. The second situation, market price remains the same, 100 plus X. Profit discount this time is P plus 10. So here in the bracket I will have 90 minus P, 100 minus 10 minus P, so 90 minus P directly I have written, by 100 minus 100 is equal to, this hundreds will get cancelled, so I'm not bothering about it, P plus 10. So from here I will get 100 plus X into 90 minus P, sorry, 90 minus 9 I've written, 90 minus P upon 100 is equal to P plus 110. Okay. I cannot eliminate P, I can eliminate X. Okay, I'm eliminating X. I'm dividing this equation by this equation to get 100 minus P upon 90 minus P is equal to P plus 125 by P plus 110. Okay. Let's multiply stuff. I will get a precise value of P. I keep on writing P as 9. This will confuse me. Okay, let's multiply this. I will get minus P square, 100P minus 10P plus 11123 is equal to minus P square, so cancel, minus 125P plus 90P, so minus 35P plus 1125, 125 into 9 is 1125, followed by 0. Okay, so I get 25P is equal to 250, or P is equal to 10. Now that P is equal to 10, let me go. 100 plus X, P is 10, so I get 90 by 100 minus 100. Sorry, this is equal to P plus 125, right? This equation from here, so by P plus 125, this is 135. So cancel. This will become, why have I done this? 0 0 cancel. This is 9, this is 15. So 100 plus X is equal to 150, or X is equal to 50. Personally, for me, this was the most irritating question in the entire paper, because not that it is difficult, it is just that it takes a lot of writing, it takes a lot of solving. So if somebody can come up with a smarter way of doing this, some more intelligent way of approaching this, I would invite you to write it down in the comment and let me know. Otherwise, I hope the entire processing, the logic or the thoughts that I had, I took CP as 100 because I was at complete liberty to do so. I had to only find out the final percentage, which can be easily ascertained, then X, and then whatever mathematical processing. Mathematical processing is the only way forward, at least the way I can see. Okay, next question. Ramakrishna Orphanage was a self-dependent orphan house. Boys and girls engage themselves in various vocational works besides their regular study. Each boy earns as much money as the number of boys in the orphanage per day. and each girl also earns as much amount as the number of girls per day over there. What can be the minimum earnings per day of Ramakrishna Orphanage? If the total earning of two boys and one girl per day is rupees 10. Okay, so I'm saying boys, their number is X and their earning per day is also X. For girls, their number is Y and their earning per day is also Y. So total earnings, finally minimum earnings. So we have to minimize x square plus y square. We have to minimize x square plus y square. We are also told earnings of two boys and one girl per day is 10. So 2x plus y is equal to 10. We have been told this. Okay. Now pay attention to the fact they have never stated it in the question. They have never stated it in the question. But x and y have to be integers. X and y have to be integers. So one way forward is simply, hopefully you can see y has to be an even integer. Simply put y as different even integers. See in which case you are getting the minimum value. That will be your answer. The other more technical mathematical way would be y would be 10 minus 2x. You put this here, you get x square plus 10 minus 2x whole square, x square plus 4x square minus 40x plus 100, 5x square minus 40x plus 100. Now this is a quadratic in x. The minima will be at minus b by 2a when x is equal to minus b by 2a, or 40 by 10. So minima will be at x equal to 4. If x is equal to 4, y will be equal to 2. So the earning in that case would be 16 plus 4 or 20. Answer to the question will be 20. The other way that I talked of, as soon as you realize these have to be integers only, you can happily go ahead and check values. If y is 2, x is 4, x square plus y square in that case would be 20. If y is 4, x is 3, 3 square plus 4 square would be 25. If y is 6, x is 2, 2 square plus 6 square is 40. Then 8 square, then whatever, you can go on. You would see, you can also see an upward trend. The number keeps on increasing. So you can reach your answer 20 that way as well. Okay, moving on. What is the maximum possible integer value of p if 7 into 8 into 9 into 10 into so on and so forth up until 135 is equal to n into 720 raised to the power p, where n is a natural number. Okay, let's see. This expression needs some sort of interpretation. If you can see, this is like a factorial, just that it is not. What I mean by that is, had there been 1 into 2 into 3 into 4 into 5 into 6 in the beginning, it would have turned into 135 factorial. Because it is not, it is troubling. So what to do? Simply add it and turn this expression into 135 factorial by 6 factorial is equal to n into 2, see 720. Break down 720 into prime factors. It will be 16 into 9 into 5. Yes. So 2 raised to the power 4p into 3 raised to the power 2p into 5 raised to the power p. This is as good as 720 raised to the power p. So essentially now I have to check the presence of 2's in 135 factorial by 6 factorial, presence of 3's and presence of 5's. Presence of 5's in 6 factorial. See, checking for 5's is simple enough. There would be one only. There would be one only in the denominator. In the numerator, let me check. 135 by 5 is 27. Sorry, why am I writing it this way? This is not a good representation. See, whatever power of 5 you would get here, that will get subtracted from power of 5 from the top. So you would do minus 1 from the denominator for 5's, 1 from the numerator for 27. you would have 27 first plus 5 plus 1. So you end up with 27 plus 5 plus 1 minus 1. You have 32 fives available with you. 32 fives available. That is done. This was the simplest, got it out of the way. Now let's check threes available, the threes that are available. In 6 factorial, you would have two threes available, one at 3 and one at 6. So you get minus 2 straight away. In 135 factorial, first you would have 45 plus 15 plus 5 plus 1. Okay. So how many threes are available? I can 45 plus 15 plus 4, 64. 64 threes are available, and therefore 32 3 squares are available. I hope you know how I'm doing this 45, 15, 13. This is something very simple. You do 135 by 3, you get 45. 45 by 3, you get 15. 15 by 3, you get 5. So the numbers that you write it down this way, I'm directly writing it because that can be done in your head as well. So I have 32 3 squares which I needed. I have 32 fives which I needed. This is wonderful. Now let me see how many 2's am I getting. Let me work for 2's. In 6 factorial, how many 2's will I get? 1 in 2, 2 in 4, and 1 in 6. So 4 have to be subtracted. And in 135, let me start off. 135 by 2 is 67. 67 by 2 is 33. 33 is 16, 8, 4, 2, and 1. Okay. So this 4 is gone, this 4 is gone, done. These two give me 100. 16 plus 8 is 24, 24 plus 3, 127. I get 127 2's, 127 2's, but I don't need 2's. I need 2 raised to the power 4's. So I will have 31 2 raised to the power 4's only. Why only 31? Because 127 divided by 4 is 31.75. Complete 2 raised to the power 4 will only be 31, and therefore the answer to this question will be option B, 31. I have 32 threes, 32 3 squares, 32 fives, but only 31 2 raised to the power 4. Now for this question, one more insight or conversation point that I want to cover is, see, if these are singular powers of prime numbers, then you check with the largest prime number, it works. But if the powers are not singular, if the powers are different, then you would have to check for all individual setups. You cannot just say I've checked it for 5, I'm getting 32, therefore I will mark 32. Please don't make that error. Okay, next question. A natural number V, which has only 3 prime factors, has exactly 12 distinct divisors. Okay, 3 numbers multiplying to give me 12. That is only possible if it is 2 into 2 into 3. Why I'm saying 3 distinct numbers? Because see, whatever the number is, prime 1 raised to the power A into prime 2 raised to the power B into prime 3 raised to the power C. Total number of factors is A plus 1 into B plus 1 into C plus 1. 3 numbers have to multiply to give me 12. It can be 1, it can only be 2, 2, 3, because A plus 1, B plus 1, C plus 1 have to be at least 2 in each case. They cannot be 1 into 1 into 12. That is impossible, because if it is 1 is to 1 into 12, it means prime number 1 or prime number 2 or prime number 3 is not present in n at all. Okay, this we know. Distinct divisors including 1 n itself, that is cool. If the sum of the prime factors of the number is 20. Okay, so prime 1 plus prime 2 plus prime 3 is equal to 20. Now about prime numbers, one general basic thing we know is most of them are odd, except 2, all of them are odd. Can all 3 prime numbers be odd here? No. If all 3 of them had been odd, the sum would have been odd. Because the sum is even, it means one of the 3 has to be 2. One of the three has to be 2. Now, if one of the three is 2, so P2 plus P3 will now be equal to 18. 18 has to be sum of two prime numbers. So can it be 3 and 15? And both of them have to be odd and both of them have to be prime numbers. 1 and 17 not possible because 1 is not a prime number. 3 and 15 not possible because 15 is not a prime number. 5 and 13, yes, indeed possible. 5 and 13 is possible. 7 and 11, yes, indeed it is possible. 9 and 9 not possible. So I have two possibilities for P1, P2, P3, either 2, 5, 13 or 2, 7, 11. Then the smallest possible value that the number can assume is. We have gotten our two cases, but this is not the end of our work. The end of our work would be, we also, because we are doing 2 into 2 into 3, it means the powers here would be 1, 1 and 2. One of these prime numbers has a power 2, one of these prime numbers has a power 1, the third prime number also has a power 1. Because you want the smallest possible number, you would give power 2 to this smallest number here, 2 only. So you would either have the number as 2 square into 5 into 13 or as 2 square into 7 into 11. Now the next step you have to see which of the two numbers is smaller, which of the two numbers is smaller. See, 2 square is common, 7 into 11, this portion is 77 here, this portion is 65 here, therefore this should be the answer. 65 into 4 is 260, so answer is option 2. Last question, I think. In triangle ABC having G as its orthocenter, D is the midpoint of BC. Okay, I have A here, I have B here, I have C here, I have G here, orthocenter. So the perpendicular or the altitudes will go through this point G. Okay, this is G. D is the midpoint of BC, so I'm taking D somewhere here. Let me take it with different color. D is here. Okay. Also the area of ABC is 5 times the area of GDC. Area of GDC, this length is equal to this length. Can you see area of GDC and area of BDG? Area of GDC and GDB has to be equal. So if this is 1/5 of total, if this is X, this is X, ABC is 5X. Area wise, ABC is 5X. GBD is also X, GDC is also X. Because bases are equal, height is same, area has to be equal. Okay. And angle ABC is equal to 60 degree. This angle is equal to 60 degree. Okay. If the minimum distance between any point on BC and A is 10 centimeters, minimum distance on any point on BC and A. So this is the point they are saying AE is equal to 10. The minimum distance between any point on BC and A is as good as saying the altitude to BC is 10. Okay, if altitude to BC is 10, can I also reach this conclusion? GE, see, GBC, look at GBC and ABC. GBC and ABC. Area of GBC is 2x, area of ABC is 5x. The only thing different in them, is the height, because bases are BC in both the cases. In this case, height is something, in this case, height is something. We have been told AE is 10. So can I reach the conclusion G is equal to 4? So this GE is equal to 4. This length is 4 is also known to us. Okay, this is also great. Find the length of GC where G lies within ABC. Ortho center, I had anyway put it inside, not a problem. Find the length of GC. They are asking me to calculate the length of GC. Okay. I have 60 degree here. I have 90 here. I have 30 here. Okay. Oh, it is done. It is done. It is done. Look at triangle GEC. Look at triangle GEC. This is 30. This is 90. So this will be 60. This will be 60. Look at triangle GEC. It is a 30, 60, 90 triangle. I know GE to be 4. GE to be 4. So the ratio of length of sides here is 1 is to root 3 is to 2. If GE is 4, GC will have to be 8. Therefore, the answer to this question will be 8 only. I cannot stress it enough, the importance of knowing special triangles, Pythagorean triplets. These help you solve your questions in due time in the exam setup very, very quickly. I hope you found the video solutions acceptable. I don't know if there is any more questions in there. No, there are no more questions. I hope you found the video solutions acceptable. This time I deliberately tried to slowly solve everything to the best of my ability and explain all the thoughts that came to my head, and also include some new thought processes that you may not, or you may have heard of or may not have necessarily understood. So something like this was a deliberate inclusion, and this was a deliberate inclusion. This not so much, this not so much. This was a deliberate inclusion, but still this is something that you are familiar with, especially with NMAT and SNAP coming up. These questions I'm sure you're doing terribly often. Okay, this was a deliberate inclusion. This not so much. This was a deliberate inclusion. So on and so forth. There are lots of questions. Have fun solving. If you have solved and did well, feel free to comment at the bottom of the video. Also feel free to comment whatever score you obtained, and we'll talk then. Thank you very much. Hope you had a good learning experience attempting this test. Okay, bye.